Welcome back, folks. It's Mark Montfort here, your host for Redbelly Insights. And this is amazingly episode 9. And we've got a special guest to begin with, Vincent Gramoli of Redbelly. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me, Mark.
It's great to have you here. Now, we were just interstate. We were up on the Gold Coast last week for the Digital Economy Council's D conference. So that used to be Blockchain Australia. It used to be called Blockchain Week. But given that they are now DECA, so it just made it right to call it DEConference, which is a great name. I really like it. But given that it was a repeat of these, blockchain week type things that we've had in the past couple of years, have you been going to those previous years of blockchain week? Do you remember when the first one was that you went to?
Yeah, I went to some of them. I think, I definitely went when we received the Blockchain Leader of the Year award. We were very happy to receive that as part of Redbelly, and I think we were well represented. Redbelly Network was well represented at the Blockchain Australia Blockchain Week.
Yeah, that's right. They have their Blockies awards. Not to toot my own trumpet, but yeah, I was a winner of a community award. I think it was 2023. I might even have the. Let's see.
Well
Sorry.
done. You have
There we go.
the trophy. Oh, well
Yeah.
done.
This is from when we were doing a whole lot of, and we still do a whole lot of community type stuff, but yeah, they recognize blockchain companies, exchanges, people that are doing work in this space, because community is massively important. It's the whole reason why we're doing these insights episodes, right? So yeah, thank you for that, and well done for Redbelly on being recognized as it was.
Thanks.
We were up on the Gold Coast for this one last week, and it feels like many many days, months have passed, even though it was only a week ago, because so much happens in this space. But how was your experience up there? What was it like for you?
It was great. It's always comforting to see familiar faces. This is really the Australian scene. So you come to a stage where essentially you know pretty much everyone in the zoo. So that's really what this conference is about. You see the similar faces. You also see new progresses. So it's always interesting to catch up with friends and colleagues and see where they are at, what they are doing, and how we can partner together. I think this year was particularly fruitful for developing this collaboration because now Redbelly is quite well known in Australia, and we could sense this during the conference.
Yeah, I think it was really wonderful to see the team represent. There were a few photos that we put out that shared some of the highlights. I saw that you shared some of that as well, and Red Belly Network did. And obviously, we had last week's Insights episode being a bit of a inside sneak peek at the conference, because this is typically something that's not really accessible for retail traders. It's or people that are involved from that retail level. It's typically for those that are working in the blockchain space. So it was nice to be able to share what you got to share with Google on stage. And before we get to that, just were there any kind of like new things that you might have learnt, or really interesting things that you found from the conference, just before we get into your talk?
I think I'm very technology oriented. So for me, it was interesting to see on stage people talking about cybersecurity and the challenges that we have. There were a lot of panels that were insightful. Beside that, I really enjoyed the Oxford type of debates between lawyers, and it was so entertaining. They were really harsh on each team, so that was really fun to see this discussion around the regulation of our industry and how they were taking different views, and how each of these views could be well argumentated and really supported by the lawyers. So it demonstrates that we're in this area where we don't know exactly how the regulation will be shaping the future of our industry, but we see that things are evolving. That's really interesting.
And speaking of lawyers, we got to see debates like that, but we didn't have to pay for it. Where typically, their time is pretty, valuable in terms of the cost. So it was really interesting to see. That's certainly for sure. And then let's get to the presentation that you had. So we showed that last week, and we're about to show a video that goes into it in more depth. The community really liked what we shared last week, but we didn't get to actually show, the recording. It's a bit, you can't quite see what's on the screen, but you've taken the time to share this thing with us, which we'll play. But as we get into it, can you just describe for the viewers that may not have seen last week's events or been online, they're just coming back into it, what is it that you presented here? What is it that you're about to show?
Yes. So essentially, we wanted to illustrate the agentic AI combination with the blockchain, especially Redbelly network, and what this can allow. So we also started the talk by explaining that there is a dystopic future, and I totally understand that people were a bit scared about agentic AI being completely autonomous and taking decision without control. And I think what I wanted to illustrate is that Redbelly network can be a safeguard for the autonomy of agentic AI in the sense that it can help users manage their pension funds, their super fund, but in a controlled environment. First, the AI agent doesn't have to be completely autonomous. And of course, we need someone who is a person or an institution that will be accountable for any AI agent that will be uploaded on the blockchain platform, because otherwise things can go crazy. So that's what I wanted to illustrate. Now, the presentation we did with Google on stage was slightly different in the sense that we interacted with real estate properties during the recording that I've done. And unfortunately, I couldn't be conveyed very clearly through the camera because of the color of the slide. It was a bit too bright, so you cannot really see the demo. So what I've done is I did another recording, which is not exactly the one that my colleagues from Google was doing on stage, but using the exactly same agentic AI interface and the same decentralized application, My AI Super, that we uploaded to the Redbelly testnet. Now I'm playing with stocks instead of playing with real estate properties, but I think the idea is the same, and hopefully you'll get the message.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that'll be clear. And two things to note on that is that people need to realize, and some have, and I think it's very clear from your talk, but working in the AI space as we do as well, we talk a lot about how blockchain will bring security. And it's actually a benefit that blockchains come first before generative AI has become popular. And then the second thing is that superannuation, which is what we call it here in Australia, or pension funds money, Australia is the fourth largest pool of pension fund money in the world, but it's projected to go to number 2 in just a few years' time, because we require that, I think it's like 11% right now, it's growing to 12.5% of what you earn gets put aside for your pension fund. So it's a very important piece, and we show that now.
Okay, so today I'm going to present convergence of regulated agentic AI and blockchain. This is a very exciting presentation that shows how agentic AI and blockchain can work together in a regulated environment. So why are agentic AI and blockchain so complementary to each other? What is interesting is that we can see the blockchain layer as the execution layer, where essentially a lot of data will be stored. And we can see that on top of that, we can have an agentic AI layer that will take decision and take some actions that will then inform the blockchain to execute these things. Because the current limitation of agentic AI is the lack of identity, the lack of trust that we have in these AI agents. We don't know how it's going to behave. It's a bit unpredictable. And more importantly, there is no accountability whatsoever. The advantage, though, is that agentic AI simplifies a lot of things. The user can interact with the agent by using his voice or just sending messages, writing in his own language, for example. And the agentic AI is supposed to understand and, take action based on these instructions that it gets from the user. The blockchain layer, on the other end, is limited by the fact that it's not regulated. It's quite complex to use, right? You have to be knowledgeable in how to interact with the blockchain. In general, you have to know about public-private key pairs and use this cryptographic technique to interact and submit transaction. So it's not very easy for everyone to use blockchain technologies. But the advantage is that blockchain is trustless, right? It provides security without the need of the trust. And it's decentralized, which means that it's robust in the face of failures. Now, if we can combine these two things together, what we will obtain is something that has the security, but can be easily accessible as well by everyone, right? So it's really promising. But the problem is that if you have an AI agent that sits on a blockchain, it can be completely autonomous, and it can take some actions outside any human decisions, right? On its own, right? So you can imagine that you have an AI agent that sits on top of the blockchain and it generates pieces of art. We have seen that in the past. We know it's possible. This is just an example that I've taken, which is a mosaic of pictures that were taken during 5,000 days and was sold as an NFT for several $1 million in New York City. The point I'm trying to make is that this AI agent can generate new pieces of art and it can sell them on a marketplace like OpenSea, for example. And it will generate a revenue that will go back to the AI agent itself. And this will allow him to create more images and also to interact with the blockchain. And so on and so forth. So the AI agent will grow a wealth beyond imagination, right? And this is the current context. Like if you use a blockchain technology, it's usually pseudonymous or anonymous, and the AI agent can do autonomously these kind of actions forever, right? So there is no safeguard that prevents this. But there is a solution that we have, which is based on Redbelly, and that will facilitate the accountability, introducing the accountability at the blockchain layer. So Redbelly comes from the Australian government. It was listed on the National Blockchain Roadmap, and CSIRO is one of the shareholders. It's fast in the sense that it offers quasi-instant finality. It's secure. The consensus protocol has been formally verified using model checking. It's accountable in the sense that each user is uniquely authenticated as a human adult. It cannot be a child, for example, or an AI agent. And any AI agent must be registered by a user who is accountable for it. It's real-world asset ready in the sense that we can trade real-world assets on this platform already in production. What is interesting is that there is a network in production right now. It consists of more than 200 machines spread all over the world in 41 countries across 5 continents.
So how can Redbelly be used in order to simplify the life of citizens?
I want to go back to this event that happened in April this year, where the Australian super got hacked and some funds were stolen. And this fund belonged to some Australian citizens. What is interesting is that this Australian super is a centralized entity. And of course, because it's centralized and it manages the fund of a lot of people, then it becomes a honeypot for the hackers. What can be a good alternative is to ensure the self-custody of the assets, such that every user will manage its own super without the help of a super fund.
So we're going to do a demo using a decentralized application sitting on the Redbelly network testnet. This application is called My AI Super because it allows a user who has self-custody of its super to manage it with the help of an AI agent. So first, the user that has self-custody of his super fund will have to register to the network using biometrics, right? You can see he has a wallet that contains his super, and he will register with the identity provider. The user will then get a verifiable credential that indicates that he can access the Redbelly network. That is a human being, essentially. now that he has this credential, he can create an account for an AI agent and give the credential to this account to the AI agent, but he will be responsible for this AI agent. Now the AI agent will access the Redbelly network testnet by interacting with the smart contracts of My AI Super decentralized application that can be seen as the business on the right-hand side. And through this interaction, it will be able to buy and sell real-world assets on behalf of the user in order to manage the user portfolio based on the user's risk profile. Finally, the user can potentially make a profit by having this agent making investments, but also because the transaction cost on Redbelly network is very low. So let's dive into the demo that operates in our testing environment. We're entering a low risk profile and a private key such that an AI agent can manage our portfolio for us. We can ask the agent what are the assets that are available, and it will tell us that there is no assets that we own. So let's list all the assets that we can purchase. And we get the results of different stocks, properties, bonds, as provided by the AI agent. We decide to buy Theta Aerospace worth 50. Thanks to the quasi-instant finality property of Redbelly, a transaction is committed almost as soon as it's submitted. And now we can ask the agent to confirm that we own Theta Aerospace. Let's now look at the My AI Super interface and observe our portfolio, all the asset classes, including in particular Theta Aerospace that we now own. So now we go back to the AI agent and we can purchase different types of assets, in particular fixed income or bonds. Now, if we decide to buy more than we can afford, then the AI agent will tell us that we don't have the sufficient funds to purchase these assets. So let's try another example. We're going to buy Vartana Finance, but less of these assets so that the transaction can proceed and be committed. Again, as soon as we submit the transaction, transaction gets committed. So we can verify that we have purchased successfully. We don't wait for confirmations. And we can see that Vartana Finance has been acquired. So we now own this bond. We can also ask what is the least risky asset. And the AI agent will advise us that bonds are probably the least risky asset. We can also get more details about some specific asset class by navigating from My AI Super decentralized application to the bond decentralized applications and observe that we own Vartana Finance bonds. We can go back to the AI agent interface and ask to buy some private equity. But we have to be more specific about the type of equities we would like to purchase. It's not sufficient to say stocks. We have to be specific about the type of stocks that we want to purchase and ask for the list of available stocks we can invest in. Now the AI agent will buy Samsung stocks. And the AI agent confirms that we own Samsung stocks. Now, to really illustrate the capabilities of agentic AI, we need the agent to take its own decision based on some event. So we're going to register the agent such that it will buy automatically stocks when they become available. We have to indicate the amount of stocks we would like the agent to purchase during these events. And now the agent confirms that he has registered to buy stocks. So now I'm going to use a different profile that you cannot see on this screen in order to sell some specific assets. These are raised properties, and we will sell them. And this will trigger an event that will be caught by the AI agent that will then buy these assets that have just been sold. So by going back to the AI agent interface, we can now ask the AI agent to confirm that he has both raised properties stocks that were made available while we were away or busy doing other things. And the AI agent confirms that now we own these stocks that we didn't own before. So this illustrates the power of agentic AI that takes decision autonomously on our behalf while we're busy doing other things in order to manage our portfolio. So I hope that this demo has convinced you of the potential of the combination of agentic AI with Redbelly network in a regulated environment, where even though the agentic AI is fully autonomous, there is still a human that is responsible for its actions.
And that was really fascinating there, folks. So Vincent, thank you very much for taking the time to record that. I think it's quite clear with the example that you've got just how the agentic kind of workflow backed and secured by blockchain can work. So thanks for that.
Yeah, no worries.
And so the next thing that I wanted to do was to showcase here something that you shared. You're in a very sharing mood last week. So this is something that you highlighted that many people around the world suffered because Cloudflare went out and it affected other services, whether it was Spotify, OpenAI, Discord, Google Cloud, many other services that relied on that, including tools that I built where I just couldn't access it. Let's just bring up this tweet that you had on screen. Let's talk about it here. So Vincent, just walk us through this. What are you saying here?
Yeah, essentially, yeah, we observed that Google Cloud Platform had some issue globally, right? So it affected a lot of different services. Here I'm listing some of the services that had been impacted by Google Cloud provider. I guess it's just that their service relies on this virtualization platform, and therefore they were indirectly impacted through the use of GCP. That's my understanding. Now, this is some information that I found online on a news article, and what you were talking about suffering, actually, the Redbelly network did not suffer in the sense that it remained available 100% of the time. So we could see that it was not crashing, even though we rely, like these other companies, on Google Cloud Platform. The difference here is that we also rely on other cloud providers like AWS or OVH. And the reason is that, of course, to be reliable and to offer a service at any point in time, then we need to make sure that we diversify the type of cloud providers that we rely upon. But just to go back to the suffering part, actually I suffered because I received a phone call from our monitoring system at night, like it was 4:15 a.m. When I got this phone call by the monitoring system alerting that Google Cloud Platform had some issues. So I had to wake up in order to understand what was going on. But after talking to my team, we realized that the impact was not impacting the availability of our main network, which was what was expected. And of course, we were reassured.
That's very good to hear. You were 4 a.m. I didn't get a notification, but I was just, couldn't sleep that night. Maybe because I knew something was going on, but I was up by like 5:30 and saw all of the announcements. I thought there was something wrong with the apps that or the one that I was like working on. And no, it was like this worldwide thing. I went to Down Detector to see like what else was down and stuff. And it showed that, yeah, there was a big spike of complaints. Now, there was this link to a GitHub on the fault-tolerant blockchain that you've highlighted here. So we've got this article that people can go to. And in terms of like highlighting this, I think the key thing for me was that you highlighted that underlying design choices are important when it comes to blockchain. And design is a really key feature of Redbelly. Can you just walk us through what's the TLDR for what we're seeing on screen here?
Yes, so first thing is that this article was written in September last year, so it's quite old now, but we were advocating for making sure that blockchains are fault tolerant. So that was even before the Google Cloud outage happened, and our observation was that there were blockchains that were like in the top in terms of market capitalization that were not available at all times. So we explained that in a research paper that has been accepted for publication in the Middleware Scientific Conference and to be discussed in December in the US. But essentially, this is just a summary of the insights or the results of the paper, where we try to explain that fault tolerance is not a given, even in a blockchain environment. And that's a bit surprising for some people, because you believe that because it's a distributed environment, then you should be much more or provide a service that is much more available than, for example, a centralized service. But Google Cloud Platform turns out to be usually much more available than Solana, right? For example, so it's a bit surprising to see that a distributed environment like blockchain cannot at all times be up and available. So I think there was a lot of work to be done, and that's what I was trying to argue about. There was a lot of work to be done around fault tolerance of blockchain, making sure that the service would remain available at all times, because actually the availability that could be reached in terms of the number of nines was not that great, right? Not even reaching 2 nines, which is less than 9, being available less than 99% of the time. And during this study, we did a comparison using the stable fault tolerance evaluation framework, and stable is called, it's written STABL. You can look it up and find the publication. But essentially, we tried to compare different blockchains, including Algorand, Avalanche, Solana, and others, and of course Redbelly. And we injected failures. So we deployed these blockchain protocols on multiple machines, and we artificially injected failures. We artificially dropped packets, communication packets between the machines, just to see how, let's say, adversarial condition that you can find on an open network like internet could impact the availability of the service. And we had really interesting insights, in the sense that we could crash few nodes and obtain the crash of the entire Solana network, for example, given that there was a warm-up feature that turns out not to be in production, but it's by default if you download the source code. So, things like this that indicated that actually it's not trivial to make sure that the blockchain will remain up and available. And finally, Redbelly was one of the most fault-tolerant blockchain during this study, which was also comforting.
Yeah, it's definitely comforting, because we're all wanting to see the success of what Redbelly gets to put on in terms of the applications that get built on it. Now, next section that I want to dive into is all about scalability, and a bit of the scalability roadmap that we've been speaking about. And I've got a few questions for you, because you're looking into this, but now, as part of that, you have something called the polygraph protocol, which allows Redbelly to detect equivocation, something that few other chains offer, really. What does this mean in real world terms, and why do you think it's such a breakthrough?
Yeah, it's a very interesting paper that was mostly theoretical at the beginning, that was probably published. I mean, the first technical report appeared online in 2019 and got picked up by Stanford, who started working on the same problem. But it was defining a very simple problem, which was there is a limit at where you cannot solve consensus. There are some environments that are so hostile or adversarial that you cannot solve consensus. And what if we could, in these instances, be able to find the culprit, find the ones that are trying to make the consensus fail, and try to do that in order to double spend in a blockchain? So that was the initial idea. And we came up with the definition of the problem. That was a new problem that we called accountable consensus, with the help of National University of Singapore and, of course, University of Sydney. That was a really interesting problem definition, but we also came up with a solution to that. And the solution is very simple. It builds upon the observation that if you want to double spend, and the blockchain that you're attacking is using DBFT, which is our consensus protocol, the only way you can do that is by equivocating, which means that you would have at some point to send two different kinds of conflicting information to two different participants in the network. And So instead of broadcasting the same information, you're essentially lying to one of the node, right? You're sending a conflicting information. So maybe the truth to one node, but a lie to another. And there is a very simple mechanism that allows us to build what we call an undeniable proof of fraud, which simply consists in forcing every important messages, like the ones where the attacker can equivocate, by simply signing this message with a cryptographic signature. And if the attacker does this, and he has to do this because otherwise the messages will just be ignored if he doesn't sign the messages. Now, if he signs two conflicting messages, then later on these two messages can be concatenated, and that represent a proof of fraud that is undeniable because it's cryptographically signed by the sender. And this is really instrumental in raising the level of security by introducing accountability at the consensus protocol layer.
I think that's brilliant, and it speaks to something that I've seen. I don't know if you've seen this kind of like a hack that's happened in the past, where I guess the idea was that people would think that if you're getting a message and it's coming from, and you can see the domain is from the company that you're dealing with, then surely you should believe it. But what happens is that people were able to hack, the hackers were able to hack the DNS, the domain name service provider, and pretend to actually be, from that domain. So you think you're getting a legitimate email when in fact you weren't. And because of that, they were able to make off with some amount of money. Now, in a scenario like that, from what you've described, I can imagine a scenario where as soon as you do a deal with a company, you sign up, you onboard, there has to be some sort of cryptographic kind of signature that only can be made from that company when you've done your KYC, AML, etc., such that anything that is an action they want you to do further on has to conform to that same cryptographic signature. And then if not, then you've got your proof of fraud like you've got here. There is an amazing type of things that we can do to fight scams and whatnot. So I think it's great that your paper has this. Now, on to the next thing. Redbelly's been prototyping, or you've been looking into this, especially with fungible assets, ways that enable the tolerance of a majority of the failures that you speak about. Something that was previously thought impossible. What does that unlock for, let's say, institutional adoption and mission critical use cases?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Again, this is even further away from an implementation within Redbelly. But here, this result that shows that actually blockchain can tolerate a majority of failures is a bit surprising. But it comes from the zero loss blockchain protocol that we designed and published in 2024, for which we got the best paper at the DSN conference, which is also a scientific conference. But essentially the idea here is if you're ready to have fork, right, which is at the moment Redbelly does not fork, right? But we know that Ethereum, Bitcoin, gives a different level of services, because when you see your transaction in Bitcoin or Ethereum, you have to wait for confirmations, right? Because otherwise you're not sure that your transaction will remain. There could be a conflicting block somewhere else in the network, and you're not yet aware of that. So you have to wait for confirmation in order for the probability that this conflicting block remains undetected decreases, sufficiently low, and reassure you that the transaction is final. And it's the same protocol, the same idea that's been designed in Solana, for example, in other blockchain, right? So it's classic that in the initial blockchains, there were forks. Now Redbelly decided to go in a different directions, in the sense that we don't allow forks. But if there is a protocol that is a bit hybrid between Redbelly and this kind of forking blockchains that will allow us to tolerate a majority of failure. And in this protocol, what would happen is we would have forks, which means that the consensus could fail, just like it fails in Ethereum from time to time, because there is a disagreement about which block should be appended at the next available index. then when this happens, and it can happen because there is a majority of failure, but in this hybrid protocol, what will happen is that we will resolve the fork and we will make sure that double spending cannot happen. So it comes under some assumptions, and I invite you to take a look at the paper to understand all the assumptions under which this result is made possible. But this is groundbreaking, right? Because we can reconcile a blockchain that has forked, and we can, at no time, we will have a double spending based on these assumptions. So it's kind of interesting as well.
Yeah, I might have to use a bit of my AI as I go through it, just to explain it like I'm 5, just to begin with, to get those basic concepts, and then, you know, try to piece things together after that. But yeah, definitely I'm going to be diving into that.
Yeah, and I think that this ZLB can be used for different use cases, but for typically high-value assets where you don't want to have any fork because you really want to have instant finality, and you don't want to have, you know, this uncertainty that your transaction may be reverted because it's part of a fork. I think Redbelly remains a preferable model, but it doesn't exclude the fact that for some other applications where essentially you don't care as much as high value assets, maybe a fork model could be a good hybrid between what Ethereum offers, for example, and Redbelly offers.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that you know, whether it's the hybrid or like the other types of models there, and certainly there's going to be other use cases that will get added to that. Let's jump to staking next, and you guys are looking at ways in which we could do staking. Let's say whether it's delegated or it's restaking. If all things line up with whatever the rules are from, you know, various regulators out there. Let's just say that everything is, you know, it's all okay. How would we manage the balance of you know, between increased capital security on the one hand and decentralized participation, because it is a bit of a balance?
Yeah, that's a tricky sweet spot to achieve, but essentially, what we have realized is that now blockchains are not only growing in values because of their market capitalization, but it's also catalyzed or fostered by the TVL, so the total value locked that they have. So, for example, on Redbelly, as we're aggregating more and more values expressed in real world assets, we also have more and more assets to secure, right? So if we want to make sure that we can secure these high value assets, we have to increase the let's say the amount of stake that the participants in the network have, right? So it becomes a difficult thing, but this is what we have listed on our roadmap, right? So initially we started with a relatively low amount of staking that is required to be a node operator on the Redbelly network, but that as the time will go on and as the value will increase on our network, then we will increase this amount of stake that will be required. And this is just because we want people who are running the network to behave by the rule of the protocols, who we want them to have skin in the game, which means that essentially we would like to make sure that they know that if they start misbehaving, if they want to try to steal assets, then they will expose themselves to losing this stake that they have uploaded or deposited in the protocol. And I think that's the way you can really achieve this ideal security. Now, there are tools that you can use in order to do that. We were talking about direct staking. This is not the only solution. There are other staking solutions like delegated staking that we're exploring, of course. We're still looking for understanding the regulated environment around this, but there is also restaking that allows you to use assets that are not present on the blockchain, but present on other networks in order to secure our given network, right? So these are tools that we plan to use and leverage in the future if the regulation allows us to do that in order to secure the Redbelly network.
Yeah, sounds really good. And there is that big R word, regulation, which was interesting at the conference, the Digital Economy Council conference, that whilst it was a topic there were certainly other things, and people were much more talking about use cases and how do we actually get things done given current regulation and obviously the call to take some actions there. So yeah, we will align on that as it comes about and as there are updates across the globe as all countries, figure out what they want to do with blockchain. The next thing is on governance. And I guess the thing that we want to look at here is that it's opening up to more external node operators. Now, because of that, there's some interesting things to think about, but how are you guys designing, how are you designing it to ensure, let's say, integrity on the one hand and coordination as the network grows in scale and diversity?
Yep. So I think what is extremely important here is to make sure that the node operators, so the nodes that are being onboarded and that are waiting to govern the protocol, because in Redbelly network, it's interesting to note that there are two types of nodes, right? There are governors and candidates. The governors will govern the protocol and they can say, oh, we want to change the version of the protocol that is currently running. While the candidates are, if you want, about to become governor, right? So they are getting ready, they download all the block of the blockchain, they make sure that they're up to date with the current state of the system, and they can be called at any time to replace someone who is not available and jump and become a governor and have this responsibility of voting about what's going to come next. It can, this vote has a lot of importance. It can change the time at which the reconfiguration will happen, which means the rotation of the governors will happen. So this is an extremely important role. What we have been doing is we opened this program where we were inviting people to run a node in the Redbelly network, and that was some years ago already. And we had so many applications that we had the opportunity to choose some diversified sample of these nodes, just to make sure that we were sufficiently distributed. For example, when a single entity coming from the same country was asking to have many nodes, so we would typically refrain from choosing these nodes, or we would try to diversify and take one of their node and maybe another node from elsewhere in order to make sure that we had this geo-distribution that was well represented in our network, but also the fact that the nodes were not all owned by the same institution. And I think that was extremely important to guarantee that we had this diversity, and we will expand the network as we will grow, and that's part of our roadmap. We will invite more institutions and individuals to run nodes, and therefore we will make sure that they also satisfy this diversity in order to reach this kind of minimal mass, if you want, after which we will believe that anyway the network is sufficiently decentralized to be completely autonomous.
Fantastic. I think that there's a lot of interesting insights in terms of the care that's been taken, going back to an earlier point, around the design of how we think about Redbelly, how we think about interactions and even rewards, as you see with staking. And so there's a lot of great things here for people to go over in the show, to rewind and probably play through whether they use AI or not. To go through the video and transcripts. But Vincent, it was great to see you up on the Gold Coast last week. And thank you again for taking the time to reshare and redo that video. That was really insightful in terms of what a future could look like with agents backed by blockchain.
Thank you very much.
Hey folks, so this is the final part of the Redbelly Insights episode. We go through what's going on in the community, and I wanted to highlight some of the great things that we have been seeing there. So just shout outs to all the people that have participated, that have been creating things. There's certainly been a rise in a lot more of the activity that's been out there and a lot of positive things that we're seeing. So really amazing stuff. So not just the folks that you're going to see here, but everyone else as well that is giving it a go. And we're looking forward to sharing more of this. So this first one is from Aishirimi or Pinkylicious on X, and they share this Redbelly becoming the beating heart of global finance. So a really great image here. highlighting the 1 million plus transactions per second, as you can see. Some great shares there, so really great image. Then there's Mario Star that's created this amazing set of videos. This is the latest one, so let's have a look.
Dad, can I buy a new jacket? Of course you can.
Mom, can I order this new bike?
Yes, sweetheart, of course you can.
Mom, Dad, can we throw a party?
Absolutely, little angels.
Robert, have you seen our phone?
It's right here, sir.
Oh, thank you.
Can we trust just anyone with important decisions? Imagine a smart butler who manages your money 24/7. He's certified, monitored, every move is verifiable. He only operates inside a highly secure home. That home is Redbelly. The butler is Google's AI. Together, they help you grow your money safely
And given what we just spoke about and shared just then in this episode and the previous one, it really makes a lot of sense for all that great work that Vincent was able to do there on show here in this great animation. There was another one that was shared a little while ago that you can see here.
Entrusting your most valuable assets is hard, and Redbelly's Rangers know that.
You might recognize the music and heard that from many a great movie out there, so have a look.
Like money, shares, or contracts into secure tokens you can use online. The system runs 24/7, even when banks are closed. The Rangers keep moving, through any terrain, at any hour, while you rest.
Just amazing stuff, Pixar type quality. I can't wait for a full movie from this user out there. And if you're not following some of these users, make sure that you do. Another thing to share was the asset tracker that's been created by Majnoon, and you can see here that it connects and tracks all the different assets that are out there for Redbelly Network. So for anyone that is new to the network, people that you want to share with what is being featured in terms of the various assets that are there, you can see all the details here. And so some really great stuff. You can even submit an asset for review. You can log in and you can share, and there's a whole heap more stuff that I'm sure is coming from the Redbelly asset tracker. And it's not just asset trackers and analytics that are being shared there, but also great videos from Majnoon. So have a look at this. In celebration of the Bluebird $54 billion that was tokenized and adds to the TVL. And then there's also this piece from Vicky Lenz, which was part of the competition to create a really great newspaper headline. And so this one is Ethereum Who? Redbelly becomes the default layer for global finance. The future isn't coming, it already runs on Redbelly. And you can see the rocket ship there flying through Visa, Swift, Ethereum, etc. So some really great stuff there. And then also being shared was a couple of things from the Redbelly team themselves. So you'll see more of these types of tiles. This one is from Sergey Nazarov, the founder of a Chainlink, a really great and useful kind of protocol that is necessary for being able to bridge many things in terms of the real world on chain, being that link between data that exists in the real world and being able to record it on chain. And he says here that if even a small portion of the quadrillions of dollars in value flowing through the Swift network and its over 11,000 members, banks makes its way onto blockchains, the entire blockchain industry could grow multiple times larger quickly. And he's absolutely right. We are still scratching the surface in terms of what is out there. So really great tweet there from the team, as well as this one that is all about the infinite possibilities. And this is from a futurist, a well-known one, Brett King, that said tokenization is the future of finance. It will allow for the fractional ownership of assets and enable a new level of liquidity and accessibility that has never been possible before. So that's a really great one there. And so there's a lot of really great things that are being shared by the community. So go ahead, keep creating. We'll keep highlighting these and sharing more of what we see out there. And we hope to see you next